Good morning and welcome, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting, the CJCC, to order today. My name is Pam Weegan. I'm the chair of the CJCC, and I want to pass on a bit of information regarding how we'll conduct our meeting on Zoom. We ask that all the members please turn on your video if you have it. We ask that all members and presenters use good conference call etiquette and mute their line when not speaking. We ask that you please identify yourself each time you speak. If you have public comment to make during the public comment section of the agenda, please use the raise the hand function on Zoom. Recordings of CJCC meetings are available on the CJCC website after each meeting. And our first agenda item today is a presentation about the Behavioral Health Court from the Behavioral Health Court team. And I think we're going to start off with Judge Sally Picorni.
Good morning. I am Sally Picorni. I am the judge who presides over Behavioral Health Court. I believe the CJCC team has had a number of presentations concerning Behavioral Health Courts. So just very briefly, I would like to refresh your memories that we began working on the formation of a Behavioral Health Court specialty court in 2014. It took a number of years really to get it up and off the ground. A lot of it is funding. I always thank our very generous county commissioners for understanding that the jail is not the place to treat people who have mental illness, and that the jail should not be, as it is in many communities, the hospital for those who are mentally ill. So the other, anyway, the county commissioners obviously recognize that, have funded Behavioral Health Court. It really geared up, I would say, in 2018. We had our first participant in 2016. We were just trying out Behavioral Health Court with one person, and then we have gradually added more and more. Our maximum capacity at a time, we believe, is about 25 participants. If I'm not, and I believe right now we have 20, and I would defer to Annie Curtis, who's our statistician for day-to-day Behavioral Health Court. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And almost every meeting, we are always reviewing applicants to add more people to the Behavioral Health Court team. Behavioral Health Court, I would describe as a wraparound service for people who are severely mentally ill. In order to be admitted into Behavioral Health Court, there must be a connection between the participant's mental illness and the crime that was committed. We have certain criteria as to who can and cannot be admitted. Primarily, no murderers, no sex offenders. DUIs, people with DUI are not admitted, primarily because we cannot dismiss DUI cases by statute without good cause, and graduation from Behavioral Health Court is not one of the lists on good cause. And we also, before admission, try and make sure that if there's a victim of the crime, that the victims are on board and that they think that this is a good resolution for the offense that's been committed. Annie has a PowerPoint presentation that has been sent out and sent around, and that it's very quick, it's very easy, it's very clear as to how Behavioral Health Court works. But day to day and week to week, we really try and work based on incentives to incentivize people to follow through with the requests we are making, as far as meeting with their therapist, meeting with their case managers, participating in drug and alcohol treatment if that is an issue. Just the various things that we are trying to provide to make the lives of our participants better. Housing is a big issue that we work on all the time. We found that people who are unhoused have a harder time following through with the requirements of behavioral health court. It's hard to keep track of your medications and your calendars and your dates when you're living out of a backpack and wandering as best you can or looking as best you can for a place to spend the night. So there are many challenges for behavioral health court, but I think the team has stepped up and we've had many successful graduates. We're proud of that. But we are always working, and I mean always working day to day and week to week to improve the process and make this experience a better experience for the participants. So with that little brief overview, if anybody has any questions of me as the judge, I'd be glad to try and answer those. If a question seems to be more appropriate for another team member, I would turn that question over to them. And we have a number of our team participating in this meeting today. Okay. Hearing no questions, I think the true purpose of this meeting is for Matt Cravens to talk about some of the statistics that he's gathered, conclusions that may or may not have been reached based on those statistics, and some direction for us as the team to figure out how to improve the court and improve the services that are provided.
Did we want to do Annie's overview presentation first?
I thought I just did.
All right.
Did you want me to pull up the actual document and share my screen with that? Or
It's you know,
I think it's
whatever people want. Maybe just very briefly, just hit the highlights, anything that Judge Pokorny missed. I know there's just a few things that might be helpful for people as background.
That'll at least introduce the team, so that would be good.
Oh,
you want me
I'd
to
be
pull
glad-
that up?
I'd be glad to start with the introduction of the team. Our most important team member is Annie Curtis, who's unmuted and working on sharing her screen right now. Annie is our administrative coordinator. I can't ever remember your official title, but she is the one we turn to for all questions having to do, what did we do last week? What did we do last year? Annie, maybe it's not clear, but that we meet once a week and we meet as a team. Annie is part of that team and participates in suggestions and discussions concerning our participants just as fully as everybody else on the team. Plus, she keeps track of what we talked about. Plus, she sends out the agenda. Plus, she works with Matt concerning the statistics of behavioral health court. Plus, she keeps Brian Dieter, who I am not seeing on the screen, but who's our, there's Brian, who's our assistant district attorney, who works with the team. She keeps him on track, and I'm sure he'll admit that. She keeps all of us on track. That Brian Dieter, I just introduced. Brian, have you been on the team about 4 months now?
Yeah, I think it's been about 4 months. It was mid-August, I think I started.
Okay. Brian's been, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so I'm somewhat new. Annie keeps me on track 90% of the time. But yeah, it's good to be here.
Okay, Sharon Zaire is also on the screen. I see her immediately. Sharon Zaire is with Bert Nash and is our, once again, I can't ever remember titles, but she's what I would call our resident therapist and does all the assessments before people are admitted into behavioral health court. And then I think she also gives all of us therapy on the team as to, I have learned many things from Sharon as far as, you know, what not to say, and because it just makes things worse, Judge. So I'm learning better talk from her, which is always really helpful. Sharon, you want to just say a word or two?
I've been part of the team since the beginning, helped develop the program, and so I'm really glad to be part and continue to work with the team. So thanks.
Mhm. And did Ed join the team? Or the Zoom screen?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Ed Lobdell's with DECA. As many of you, I'm sure, know that many persons who suffer from mental illness also have coexisting disorders, one of those being addiction. So we work closely with DECA to also work on issues concerning substance abuse. So Ed, if you'd introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ed Lobdell. I oversee DECA's outpatient clinic here in town, which is where our clinician and our peer support specialist come from, who are both part of the team. That's Blair and Chastity there. They sit on the behavioral health court team.
Okay. And then Chastity, can you introduce yourself? Maybe Chastity's not on the screen. Is Blair available?
It doesn't look like either of them are here today.
Okay, we also have, I know Brenda Klee has just joined the meeting. Brenda's an attorney in Douglas County and is also on the team. Brenda, can you identify yourself and just say a couple of words about behavioral health court?
I'm here. I have to say I've done a lot of things in my life. You would not believe my resume, and this program is the most exciting thing I've ever done. And I may not be much of a defense attorney, but well, in terms of experience, but I feel like this is where we can truly make a difference. And I've just been honored to be able to work with this team.
And I don't know, Karen Ebmeyer's another attorney, defense attorney on the behavioral health court team, but I don't know if Karen was able to participate today.
I'm here, Your Honor.
Okay, can you say a few words, Karen?
Sure. I'm Karen Meyer. I've been part of behavioral health court team since June 2019. I have learned so much from the team members, and I think it helps me be a better attorney all around, whether I'm participating in behavioral health court or whether I'm helping other clients in the community. So I'm very glad to be a part of behavioral health court, and I very much appreciate the support from our community.
And then Jolene Cullen is with Adult Services, and she's on the behavioral health court team as a pretrial officer. Is Jolene with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I work with the clients, keeping them accountable to what their goals are and what they need to accomplish. And I've been here since February 2020. So I'm just before COVID.
Okay. And then are there any other team members that I've missed? Okay.
See, Leonidas is our new team member.
Oh. Leonidas is, it's been wonderful to have Leonidas come and sit through behavioral health court. And then he's always at the door so that as you leave, you can give Leonidas a pat and he'll give you the biggest smile you've ever seen in your life. So, and he's also there to greet you as you come in. So he's been a wonderful addition to behavioral health court. Then that's the team. That's what how we've broken up the various duties and obligations of the team members. And where should we go next, Annie?
I just pulled up the PowerPoint. Can everybody see the screen on that now?
I can.
Okay. I'm just going to look through here and see if there's anything you didn't go over. This is the purpose of BHC. Does anybody have any questions about that? Basically, who's eligible? Douglas County resident. You have to be a Douglas County resident, 18 years old, pending municipal or district court charges. So if you have a municipal case, we can bring that over into district court. You have to meet the criteria for some severe mental illness. And when we send that on to an assessment to Sharon Zaire, she will actually decide if people are meeting that criteria or not. There needs to be a connection between the incident and the mental illness, and they must be willing to participate for approximately 1 year. Sometimes that's more, sometimes it can be a little bit less, but usually it's around that time. And no, like a judge said, no homicides, sex offenders, or DUIs. So this is just basically the process. The referral form comes in, it comes to our office. They are on the website, and it's emailed to the DA BHC at douglascountyks.org. The DA's office will complete initial review of it. And then if we approve it to go on, it'll go to Burt Nash for an assessment. Then the team will review it. And if they're accepted, a letter is sent to their defense attorney with paperwork, and that's sent to the new BHC attorney that's appointed to them. And then they have their first appearance. If they're denied, we send a denial letter. At the first appearance, that contract and rights advisory, they sign that, they turn that in. The judge will set bond conditions and give instructions, goals, and new court date. And then they have to meet with adult services and treatment and go through the 4 phases of our program. They're kind of long, so it's basically just, they have a stability phase is the first one. In that phase, they have like 14 days of sobriety, medication compliance, and no sanctions. The other things are on there too, just trying to get them into housing and get their routines established, taking their medication, and attending their weekly appointments. If drug and alcohol treatment is required or indicated on the assessment, we usually will get the assessment done. Then you go to phase 2, maintenance, and each of these tells you how long these phases average. They have to have 30 days at that point of sobriety, medication compliance, and no sanctions. We work on maintaining housing at this point, employment or education, and they attend court bi-weekly at that point. Then we have phase 3, which is wellness, and phase 4, healthy choices and lifestyle. And phase 3, they have 60 consecutive days of sobriety and medication compliance and 30 consecutive days of no sanctions. The main things there is they're going to be working on ideas for a give back project. Each participant in the behavioral health court has to complete a give back project, whether that be an actual project of making things for the community or completing community service. They come to court every 3 weeks, and they attend adult services monthly. And then phase 4, this is more of your wellness, your healthy choices and lifestyle plan. They have to have 90 consecutive days of sobriety with no hospitalizations or increased services for mental health. They have to have 30 consecutive days with no sanctions and be in compliance with the program conditions. We also have them do a wellness plan with Burt Nash. If they do go to DECA, relapse prevention plan, then their give back project has to be completed for them to graduate. Basically just keeping them engaged in medication, taking care of any court obligations, monthly court, and taking care of any fees or community service that they need to take care of. Judge kind of went over the incentives and sanctions that we have in the program. The big things that we have, we try not to do sanctions. We do the most we can with incentives. We have tickets that participants will get for showing up at court, going to treatment, and meeting their weekly goal. They also have an all-star every month, and monthly, or every week, and then a monthly basket every month that the participants can win if they're compliant. So some of the things that we do for like sanctions and stuff are obviously listed there. Sometimes we'll do writing assignments, apology letters. Journaling is one that a lot of people do, just different things that we try to find ways to help them to get back on track. Graduation, participants will graduate if they successfully complete BHC. Then we'll have an actual graduation in Division 2. Judge will bring cookies and milk, and they'll get a chance to come up in front of everybody and talk and say, you know, whatever they want to say about the program and how it went for them. And then they'll be able to have people come from their family and actually watch them graduate. And that's open, so people can come to that. We've had a lot of different people come to that, different commissioners and different people on this team, I think, have come to those graduations before. The last thing is, if the participant does graduate, they are eligible to ask the court to have their charges expunged so that the record of their arrest and criminal charges are removed from the public record with 2 exceptions. So the BHC attorneys will actually file that paperwork for them to help get that going and hopefully get that arrest expunged in addition to their case dismissed. I think that is it though. That is the end of the presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
I do. This is Tamara Cash, and thank you for reviewing the process. It's been a while since I think some of us have heard what the behavioral health court entails. One of the things that I've forgotten, I'm sure this was discussed early on when the court was forming, but what would happen in a case where a person met all of the criteria, but did not meet the age criteria? For example, if they were 16 or 17, what would happen?
This is Judge Pokorny, and I'll take that. Well, because as an adult court, we don't have jurisdiction over juveniles. And what you are suggesting may be an excellent idea, is that we have a separate court, behavioral health court, for juvenile offenders. But at this point, this court does not take juvenile offenders. And I will tell you, Ms. Cash, that we have at least monthly conversations with the team, and even I have it with Judge McCabery as far as ways we can expand behavioral health court. And that is an excellent suggestion as where an expansion could go. I also saw the district attorney, Ms. Valdez, shaking her head in the affirmative with that idea when we've been talking about that.
Thank you.
This is Brenda Klee. There's something I'd like to add, which, I mean, I'm also on the juvenile offender panel, defense panel. And the reality is a lot of the juvenile offender cases proceed through a very similar program. However, I can certainly see perhaps a particular subset of juvenile offender cases going to something similar to this because of kind of they get wraparound services as a juvenile offender, but they don't get the same kind of, there's a certain camaraderie in behavioral health court among the participants, I think. And we missed that a lot during remote appearances during the last bad phase of COVID. But I think a subset of juvenile offender cases having a similar program would be a really good idea. But it's not that they don't have the same kinds of services and supervision in juvenile offender cases. They're just missing the rewards, sanctions, talking to other people who are in a similar position. Yeah, my 2 cents.
Any other questions for the team members?
I actually do have a question, Judge Pokorny. This is Darren Kennedy. That previous response actually made me sort of wonder, could I get a little bit there? It seemed to suggest that there's, do participants within behavioral health court, do they work together, or are there moments where they're actually experiencing the program as a cohort? Because that seems slightly different than what I was gathering from the presentation.
That is a good question. We have a behavioral health court docket, is how I would describe it. And if you are a new participant, you come every week. If you are in phase 2, you come every other week, phase 3, every 3 weeks. But everybody sits together in the courtroom unless we are participating remotely, which we've been doing a lot in the last 2 years. And they get to know each other, particularly because as each person gets up and talks to me, the participants get to know the other participants' struggles and triumphs and tribulations and life stories, and they do bond at those dockets.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Bob, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, in line with Darren's question, can you just give us a sense of like, in terms of like what the program entails in addition to like court appearances and what happens at the court docket? Do participants, do they participate as a cohort in group therapy? Do they participate in ongoing or existing groups at Burt Nash? Like in terms of like what the treatment protocol or process looks like, can you give us sort of like just a slice of that or a picture of that?
I'd turn that over to Sharon and Ed, because I do think that in some of the group therapies, there may be some overlap with several people who are in behavioral health court participating at the same time. But Sharon, why don't you take that first?
So each participant becomes an active Burt Nash client and develop a personalized treatment plan, and then just participate in treatment as any other mental health provider seeking services with the leverage of the court. So referrals for medications, group therapy, individual therapy, case management, all those interventions are offered to them, as well as substance abuse services through DECA. So DECA and Burt Nash work together to develop the overall comprehensive treatment plan that they participate. So it's really their individualized plan, and then the court just incentivizes their active participation in their own treatment plan.
Sharon, I'd jump in though. The part of some participants' treatment plan is our group therapy meetings. Do we have more than one behavioral health participant in group therapy? Do they overlap?
Sometimes especially at DECA, a lot of those, like the intensive outpatient program and the groups are overlapping. We have so many different groups at Burt Nash, depending on what their diagnosis is or presenting problem. We have run some just behavioral health court only cognitive based groups, which I was doing a little bit more of before COVID. I'm hoping to start those up again, just for some of the people with some of the cognitive distortions and helping address those in a group environment.
Okay. Ed, do you, what about DECA?
Yes, Sharon mentioned a couple things. They have some overlapping groups at DECA. After everyone participates in that first, assessment and treatment plan, treatment is individualized from that point. So they may be in, 3 or 4 group sessions a week, or 1 group session a week, or no group sessions a week, just depending on that individual's needs. So, but a lot of them do overlap, see each other in court and in group. At DECA, we also assign one clinician, Blair, who participates on the team. He also takes all of the behavioral health court clients for individual therapy. So he can provide similar services to everyone and just kind of be informed about the whole process with all the participants. And then Chastity does a similar thing too, right? So if Judge Picorni asks somebody to meet with Chastity for peer support, or if it's part of their treatment plan, Chastity sees all the behavioral health court participants. So they all have a similar experience with her. She does offer a peer support group as well. It's an open group though, so sometimes they will attend and see each other in there, and sometimes they choose not to attend. So
Looks like my eyesight's terrible. All I can see is your first name, Marielle.
That works. I'm Marielle Fierro, community representative. I just wanted to see if you could give us a little background on the coordinated care for housing. I was very glad that you mentioned that incarcerated folks with mental health issues often have problems when they leave with having sustainable supportive housing. And so I kind of wanted to hear what efforts in that coordinated care that this group does.
Once again, I would defer to Sharon to answer that because there is a housing component with Bert Nash.
Right. So we have a pretty comprehensive housing program at Bert Nash. We have 2 supported housing programs, like a group environment that Behavioral Health Court pays for 1 bed. So we can house one of our participants. And we've had more than one at a time. But Behavioral Health Court will cover 1 person, and that's a 24-hour staffed residence to help people stabilize, develop an income, and then eventually move out into independent living. We have a supported housing team at Bert Nash. Once they do get into independent living, that team can wrap around services to help them in their home. We help people apply for housing assistance through Section 8, rapid rehousing. We have those funds as well. So all of those services are provided. We also help people get into Oxford houses if that's the kind of support they need to be sober. So that's something that Chastity has a big connection with, a lot of the Oxford houses, and she helps get people involved in that.
I would also add that when all of those options fail, which sometimes they do, Sharon has some amazing personal connections with landlords, and they really like Sharon. And so when she goes and pleads on behalf of our participants to allow them one more chance at not trashing the apartment like they did the last time they were renting from that landlord, she is very, very successful at getting second and third chances for our participants. And they do better.
Thank you. And Sharon, I work with the Housing Authority, and I'd love to talk with you a little bit more about how it can be supportive with maybe getting some more landlords if that's a need on board. So I'll reach out to you, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. I think I saw Sarah Plinsky with her hand up.
Yeah, and I just wanted to piggyback a bit on that comment, and just, one of the things I think we're trying to challenge ourselves at the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council is while I think we're all doing really excellent work here, like I think Marielle's question was more about the challenge. So my assumption is that not that it's easy peasy to house every behavioral health court client. Not that everyone's not working really hard and doing great work. So if we could kind of set that piece aside and talk about the challenges, and it sounds like we were getting into more of those conversations that sometimes it is really difficult. And maybe we could just talk a little bit more about that piece, just so when we think about the holistic approach to how we're trying to meet the needs of these clients, how we as a community can help solve that. So I was just going to maybe ask us to dig a little deeper on that point. Sharon.
Yeah, one of the challenges is people can apply for housing assistance through the Housing Authority, and many of them do. However, in order to actually receive assistance for Section 8, their charges have to be resolved. So until they graduate from the program, their charges aren't dismissed. So they can't actually receive the assistance while they're in the program. they have to wait till they graduate. So we've actually allowed some people to remain homeless because they just aren't able to afford their own apartment until they graduate and can get the assistance with the housing authority. So that is one challenge. It would be nice if we could have them remain in court while they're getting into their own apartment with that assistance and continue for a few months to make sure that they're stable, but that's just not an option right now.
Oh, Ms. Valdez?
Hi, good morning, everyone. The DA's office is planning on reaching out to the Lawrence Chamber and doing a presentation about behavioral health court. Judge Pokorny, we may loop you in, of course, to be a part of that. This is all sort of our efforts to communicate and reach out to the community, but we really want to push housing and employment with the private sector to see whether we can get support on that end, letting them know what we're doing with behavioral health court and seeing whether we can get buy-in from the private sector to help with both housing and employment. We're also trying to do an expungement fair this spring, which will help with that as well. And I think we'll push that with the chamber to let people know that, we're working on that end to get people's records expunged. And that's not related very much, kind of related to behavioral health court, but certainly to what we're doing in the DA's office. And I think it all is connected in some way. So wanted to throw that out to you and let you know that we're working on that piece as well.
Okay. Well, I think we mainly used up our time answering questions. Is it time for us to go on to Matt's presentation concerning the statistics from behavioral health court?
I think in the need to continue on, we probably should, so we don't run out of time.
Okay. So I turn it over to you, Matt.
All right, well, I just want to say thank you to the BHC team for meeting with me earlier and discussing the data, especially Annie, Jolene, Sharon Zaire for working with me to get the database records up to date and fixed and answering all my questions. Shannon Brugge as well. Just a lot goes into getting the data updated and reported accurately. So thank you to the team. So overall, I think the statistics you're about to see show that BHC is progressing well on the whole. It really is. And also that there are a few handful of areas for improvement. So my goals for today are just to present some of the highlights so you can understand the program, what's working, what we might improve, and then get any feedback or answer any questions you may have. BHC team, feel free to interrupt if you need to add anything, and CJCC members, please feel free to jump in if you have any questions. So this figure shows that BHC denies a moderately large percentage of its referrals, about 61% in 2021 and 62% in the 3 prior years from 2018 to 2020. Optimally, I think the denial rate would be a little lower to get a few more people into the program, but I'm not aware of any best practices reports that definitively state whether 61% is too high or too low. This table shows the reasons that BHC referrals were denied in 2021 and in previous years. The percentages don't sum to 100% because multiple denial reasons can be listed for one referral. The most common denial reasons in 2021 were public safety risk or high risk of violent reoffense and not amenable to program. In general, best practices recommend not relying much on subjective suitability criteria like personal impressions about a person's motivations for change when selecting people for treatment courts. The not amenable to program reason for denial appears to be one such subjective suitability concerns, and it would be good to use it a little less. However, it was used less in 2021 and for only 5 denials in that year.
Matt, can you tell us a bit more about the public safety risk or high risk of violent reoffense? How is that assessed?
I would actually defer to the BHC team, Annie or Judge Pokorny on that. It's just entered in and I report what's entered in, but what specifically goes into that, I'm not sure.
So I can answer that one. So typically when we deny someone for being a public safety risk, that's either based on nature of the charges or it's based off of a VRAG assessment scores.
And do you keep data on when it's based off of the nature of the charges versus when it's based off of a risk assessment?
Currently, I don't believe so.
I would also be curious on the racial breakdown of that, particularly since we've seen such a jump from 12% to 30%. Risk assessment tools have been heavily criticized for having a number of racial implications that we don't want to see in these courts. So I'd be a little hesitant in thinking about how we use risk assessment in keeping folks out of these types of opportunities.
This is Judge Picorni, and I agree with that very much. But just before we came on, I looked at of the current 20 participants, as far as the racial breakdown, 9 of the 20 I would just describe as non-white. So we're almost at 50%.
Shannon, this is Karen Meyer, I'm a BHC defense attorney. I think the team is doing more to be aware of the systemic issues that may have caused or contributed to someone appearing to have a high criminal history. I think this data has been helpful to us to refine our practices, and I anticipate that we'll put that into place in the upcoming years.
And I'll just say, as I recommended to the team before, we scrutinized the non-amenable to program a little bit, just because I do know that that reason is used a little disproportionately for Black referrals as opposed to white referrals. So it's just something to consider. I don't know if it's statistically significant or not, but it is borne out in the data.
Thank you.
All right, so this figure shows that the average time from first appearance in court to BHC referral has gone down in the last few years. Just one note, when there are multiple offenses, the most recent one is used to calculate the time from first appearance to referral. So the average time declined. It was still significant in 2021, though. It was 96 days or 3.1 months. But one note is that half of referrals were made in 46 days or less. So the median time in 2021 was 46 days, and 4 referrals in 2021 took 340 days or more. So it does skew the average a little bit. And the team has noted that the time to referral may be long for some individuals due to the difficulty obtaining mental health assessments and sometimes COVID-related delays. So nevertheless, one conclusion is that steps should be taken to further reduce the time to referral if possible. I understand that this time is not really under the control of the BHC team as much as other steps in the program, but I do believe the team has some ideas about how to reduce this time further and could probably do so with a little more effort too. So any questions?
Yes, I have a question. It was related to your previous screen. When a person declines to participate, is there any data on the reasons they give?
So typically when we use that denial reason, so to be accepted in the program, you first of all have to show up to get a assessment with Bert Nash. If they don't show up to those, we count that as declining to participate.
Okay, so it's by default sometimes.
Yeah, that's typically when it's used. I'm not sure of any other time that we do use that one.
Are there times where they just outright say they don't want to participate in it?
That's what I was going to say. We have a number of people, this is Judge Picorni, who say during the assessment with Sharon Zaire that they don't want to do this, but their attorney told them to show up for the evaluation.
But they don't elaborate on their reasons.
One common reason that comes to my mind, and Sharon, you do all of the assessments, so jump in here after I'm finished, is that many people do not recognize that they have a mental illness and do not wish to recognize that they have a mental illness and therefore say that there's no reason for them to participate in a behavioral health court since they do not have a mental illness.
And this is Brenda Klee, and quite frankly, we've had some who, when presented with the opportunity, have looked at all that they would be required to do and the time commitment and the effort commitment. And oh my God, the necessity of being open to actual change, and decided they really didn't want that.
Jay, did you have a question? If not, I can just move forward. So one time that's a little bit more under the team's control is the time from referral to admission. And in 20, and that was relatively short. It was 25 days, and it's gone down a lot in the last few years. One thing just to note, though, however, is that the time between first appearance and admission decision was an average of 121 days, so 96 plus 25. So that is higher than recommended in best practices, which say that the sort of best time is 50 days from the time of arrest or other triggering event to the admission. So this table displays the average months in the program by type of exit and year of exit. Successful graduates stayed in the program an average of 14 months in 2021, and I think 14 months is about in line with the team's expectations. 7 participants voluntarily withdrew from BHC in 2021, and that is more than in prior years, and they stayed about 7 months on average. So if possible, that time that people stay in the program before withdrawing should probably be shortened. So in the right-hand bar, we see that people who failed out of the program stayed an average of 4 months in 2021. And the average time for this group did decline significantly from 2018 to 2021, which marks significant progress towards the BHC goal. What we don't want is someone spending a year in the program, which could potentially be longer than the time they'd spend incarcerated for their offense, and then failing out and going to the regular criminal docket to potentially face jail time on top of their year in BHC. And so it's good if we sort of can figure out earlier rather than later if they may want to leave the program. So this top table shows the percent of successful graduates and unsuccessful exits that had a jail stay within 1 year following their exit. This is a pretty important measure to determine whether BHC is helping its graduates stay out of jail or not. Successful graduates were much less likely to have a post-program jail stay. So what these numbers here show, the 19% versus 55%, is that BHC does appear to help people stay out of jail, one of the most important goals of the program. The 7 successful graduates who had a post-program jail stay were only in the correctional facility an average of 1 day. The 21 unsuccessful exits with a post-program jail stay were in jail an average of 53 days for all their post-program stays combined. I think one warning should be made that we shouldn't attribute to BHC all the reduction in post-program jail stays for the successful graduates. It could always be that the kind of people who make it through the program are the kind of people who wouldn't have had as many jail stays anyways, regardless of the BHC involvement. But these numbers do very strongly suggest that BHC is helping people stay out of jail. And I would say they're pretty striking, the 19 versus 55% and the 1 day versus 53 days. Any questions on this? So this slide is similar to the last one, except it examines post-program inpatient stays for mental health rather than jail stays. And we track post-program mental health inpatient hospital stays for about 2 years following exit. The successful graduates were less likely to have a post-program inpatient stay. BHC does appear to help people avoid these inpatient stays. The 7 successful graduates who had one stayed an average of 62 days for all their stays combined, and the 11 exits who had a post-program stay stayed an average of 59 days. So again, this does appear to be showing some success, which is a great sign. The people who graduate appear to do well after the program from the prior slides, but a lot of people in the program, a slight majority, don't graduate, and those who don't succeed are returned to the regular criminal docket. So this shows the percent of exits that were successful. Last year, only 38% of exits were successful graduations. A higher percentage of exits were successful during the height of the pandemic in 2020, in part because of fewer drug tests, but the percentage was lower in other years. And then in the next slides, we're going to look at some of the post-program outcomes for the people who graduated in 2020 versus the other years. So participants who graduated in 2020 with fewer drug tests appear to do as well or better than the participants who graduated in other years in terms of post-program jail and inpatient stays. Specifically, the 2020 graduates are about as likely as the 2018 to 2019 graduates to have a post-program jail stay. They have a 17% likelihood versus 19% likelihood for the 2018 to 2019 graduates. And here we see that they are equally as likely to have an inpatient stay. So it's 25% versus 25% in 2020 versus prior years. The 2020 graduates with any post-program jail stay are in the correctional facility about the same average time as the 2018 to 2019 graduates, 1 day versus 0.7 days, pretty small for both groups. And the 2020 graduates with any post-program inpatient stays are in a facility significantly less time than the people who graduated in other years. So that's 22 days versus 92 days. Yeah, Bob.
Matthew, quick question on that. I'm just helping to understand what fewer drug tests mean.
So what I understand from the team is that a lot of meetings were by Zoom and not in person, so there were fewer drug tests at the height of the pandemic, and so that a lot of those graduates were not subject to the same sort of drug testing regimen. Is that correct?
Matt, that is correct. Also, pretrial is Jolene now is the one who does like the UAs and puts on the patches. And during COVID, they just were not having that kind of intimate contact with bodily fluids and participants. So we had fewer UAs, fewer patches being put on people to monitor their drug use.
So this was just a COVID related thing, anomaly, not there's been a program change on patterns of drug testing by design or anything.
That is correct. And we've had many discussions about drug testing and the necessity, but best practices say for a specialty court, and behavioral health court is a specialty court, that people should graduate with 90 days of sobriety behind them. And that means any mind altering substances.
Judge, is there drug testing for the purposes of measuring therapeutic levels of drugs for psychiatric reasons?
Yes, Bert Nash does that. We do that frequently when we see somebody that we feel has been doing very well and then suddenly seems to be having some problems or issues. One of the first things we check is their levels of therapeutic medications. See if that needs to be tweaked or adjusted. Am I right, Sharon?
Yeah, we refer them to their med provider, who often request lab work to check their levels.
I think it's, Patrick, I think it's important to note that there's probably also some medications that it's hard to do that testing. It's not a great measure of what the appropriate level is, but there are some that are definitely, you're able to do that. That definitely is a more invasive. I mean, it requires a syringe and, going to the medical facility to get that blood draw and all that. Different than a typical drug test like they're referring to the other way.
Right. And do we track any of that? Like, I mean, I know we can't connect a patient, but do we have any sense of like what types of drugs are used by patients who have psychiatric illness? Do we have any of that type of data as the program moves forward?
Do you mean illicit or medication?
No, I mean therapeutic, psychotropic, or psychiatric drugs. like how often Risperdal is used, or how often Abilify is used, or how often how many clients are on lithium versus something else. How many people are on anticonvulsants versus antipsychotics?
No, we're not tracking that for the people in the program currently.
Well, there are just, a few ideas for increasing the success rate based on a view of the data, and I'll open up to the team to see if they have any ideas too. But just what I'm seeing from the data and based on the conversations, it seemed like BHC could be a little more proactive about getting DECA sessions, DECA is the drug treatment provider, and drug treatment to everyone proactively. Substance abuse does appear to be a major contributor to people failing out. BHC, I know, has talked about giving rides to DECA appointments for people in the way that they give rides to mental health case management appointments. And I think BHC is working on a plan to do this, and this would seem like a really great way of increasing the attendance rate for the substance abuse sessions, which is actually lower than the attendance rate for mental health sessions. We talked about best practices in terms of drug testing. I know that the manuals that were written 10, 15 years ago all talk about sobriety for 90 days prior to graduation. As Judge Piccone said, these best practices are evolving pretty rapidly in terms of marijuana. I suggest that maybe we sort of do a lit review on this. I know criminal penalties are phasing out for marijuana. That was a major reason for positive tests in drug court. I haven't seen the data for THC, but I assume THC could be a major positive test indicator here as well. And there are drug courts and BHCs out there in the other states that are sort of evolving on this too, and it's something to think about. One idea too is that perhaps BHC could communicate expectations to potential participants a little bit better. I think we already tell people the rules and expectations before they enter the program, but perhaps potential participants need to be told more directly the difficulty of BHC, that is completely drug and alcohol free and involves testing. I know there's been a lot of voluntary withdrawals many months into the program lately, and I've heard that some of them are substance abuse or substance related, so that's something we could work on. And then one thing that's a change that BHC recently decided to do is to have all initial comprehensive evaluations done by a psychiatrist instead of using a mix of psychiatrists and nurse practitioners, and this may help improve success rates too. So again, these are just a few observations based on the data. If the team has any other suggestions for improving success rates, do please feel free to jump in. I know you all know the participants the best.
Is that, Matt, is that do we have any more screen?
Oh, there are a few more slides. If you want, I can finish up the slides and then we can jump into that.
Okay.
So one conclusion that I arrived from the data is that BHC might provide additional support to its Black and Native American participants. So in the top right, we see that the success rate for Black and Native American participants is significantly lower than the success rate for white participants. Among 2018 to 2021 exits, only one of the 5 Native American participants successfully graduated. However, I know the BHC team is investigating this disparity further. We met about it, they're digging into the data. And one idea is perhaps having Haskell folks meet with some Native American participants at some meetings. I'm sure there can be other ideas that are developed too. And one idea is that more Black individuals should be referred. About 39% of the jail population with serious mental illness is Black, but only 19% of BHC referral population is Black. Hispanic ethnicity should probably be tracked more consistently. I understand it may not always have a checkbox for Hispanic ethnicity, just race sometimes. So it may be underreported. Only about 1% of BHC referrals are Hispanic versus about 5% of the jail population with SMI. And the likelihood of admission among referrals is similar across the major racial and ethnic groups, which is good news. This slide is a little bit like the last one, but for gender or sex. We see that more women are referred and admitted and successfully complete. Their success rate is a little bit better as well. So one suggestion may just be to have more men referred to BHC and maybe a little bit more support for male participants as well. This figure shows that participants have a low failure to appear rate at status hearings. BHC participants attended 91% of their status hearings, which I feel is very good. You have a 3% FTA rate. The percentage of status hearings that were postponed did temporarily increase during the pandemic to about 10%, but then it decreased again in 2021. And this is a measure that BHC has been working on, and really their success is being borne out in the data. So we see here that the ratio of incentives to sanctions increased significantly from 2018 and 2019 to 2020 and 2021. Consistent with best practices, this ratio is well above the number of 4. So this is good news. Sanctions for substance abuse do occur frequently. I think this is one thing that's been found in the past. They made up about 50% of sanctions circumstances, which is large, but slightly less than in prior years. Individuals who primarily have substance abuse disorders should be referred to drug court. I know that's a perennial issue, trying to decide who should go to which court, but that's something we should continue to focus on in the future. And then best practices are to adjust treatment requirements in response to positive drug tests early in the program. Consistent with best practices, jail sanctions don't occur to be occurring much in the first 90 days of the program, with one exception. So that's very good news. The percent of exits with any in-program jail stays for new charges is about 28%. One nice sign is that it's gone down a little bit in 2021. So these are people who, while in BHC, pick up new charges and have an in-program jail stay. It's similar, curiously, for successful exits and unsuccessful exits, but to me, this seems to indicate that people can fall down, have a new charge, but then pick themselves up and graduate. Attendance at therapeutic sessions is generally good. The no-show unexcused rate edged up a little bit in 2021 to 15%. We can see a little variation in that by type of appointment. So substance abuse appointments have the highest no-show rate. Mental health appointments, especially case management and community-based services, have a very good attendance rate at about 90%. So the BHC team really can continue to work on providing rides for substance abuse sessions. I think that would help. That's a good idea if it's at all possible. Yeah, Bob.
Sorry. One other question I had on the intensive outpatient. I know in conversations I've learned a little bit more than I understood previously about intensive outpatient. But could you get Sharon or the team, could you just give a little slice of what intensive outpatient for mental health is at Burt Nash, how it works? Like, one of the things I learned 2 weeks ago is it was really intended for people who are actively suicidal.
Yeah, so our intensive outpatient program is a Monday through Friday. I believe it's still 9 to noon. It's kind of like a partial hospitalization, and it's for people who are at risk of hospitalization. It's an attempt to keep people out of the hospital into the community. So if someone presents with increased depression, suicidal ideation, maybe some suicidal plans, and they really need to get engaged in treatment in order to prevent hospitalization, then they can be referred to the IOP program. So that's a little different than the IOP at DECA, where it's just a different criteria. It's not a same, it's not similar.
So what are your thoughts about the no-show rate there? Because when I look at that, I think that's high, but that might just because I'm not a clinician and I don't play one on TV.
The no-show rate for IOP, mental health IOP?
Yeah.
Well, I think that there's not very many of our participants that participate in the intensive outpatient program at Burt Nash. A lot of them just don't meet that criteria. So I think that's based on just a handful of people, and just one person in particular just never attended, was referred, and then never attended. So I think that kind of speaks to why that's higher.
Hey, Sharon, was that person ultimately successful or unsuccessful?
In the program,
Yes.
he's still in, that person's still in the program, so we don't know yet. But I think we'll be.
I think that might be good to flag, Matthew, moving forward, like with a little asterisk. I know when we look at lengths of stays in the emergency room, there are people who stay for significant periods of time beyond the average length of stay. And a lot of times the complicating factors. It just might be helpful to have a little more explanation on that number, since if it's unfairly skewed by one person, that would be good to know.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes that is difficult to see in the data. You have to jump into it to see if there's one person. And there were 270 total appointments. So, a 40% no-show rate is probably not reflecting just one person, but, one person could move that percentage around a fair amount.
Well, in particular, if they are expected to be there daily, so 5 appointments a week in a sense, if I miss 3 of them, my no-show rate is going to be pretty high compared to if I have a weekly or every other week therapy appointment, and it's going to be different. So I agree with what suggesting.
Yeah, that's a great point. And this is the last slide. This table just shows the housing status of successful graduates. And we see that 92% of successful completers were in a house or apartment at exit. 73% were in a house or apartment at entry. So about 20% of the successful graduates moved from a less stable housing option to a house or apartment. And that's all the slides on the whole. I really think that BHC appears to be doing well. Not everything is tracked in the data, so I can't give you the full picture of it, but this gives you some highlights. The people who graduate are doing well after the program. They're being much less likely to have a jail stay, among other positive data points. The graduation rate is still fairly low, and so that's something we can look into, and it looks like substance abuse is tripping up a number of people, and there are probably a number of mental health impediments to success too, not all of which are highlighted in these slides, but I think this gives us a good roadmap for ways to improve the program, and I'd certainly like to open it up for any questions or comments from the BHC team or the CJCC members. Yeah, Darren.
Yeah, and this question might be a little bit more towards Judge Picorni. And when I first came on to CJCC, one of the first meetings that I attended actually was another presentation on behavioral health court. And at the time, there was sort of a question about, right sizing of the program. And so now 2 and 3 years later, I sort of wonder, this is kind of like one of those high level questions. Does it feel as if, in terms of numbers, that BHC is meeting the needs of Douglas County in terms of capacity? When you look at, once people have gone through the eligibility check, is there space for everyone that is eligible? Is it a program that feels like, yep, at this size is the right size for Douglas County? Is it, or does it need to be expanded? Question mark. So I'm trying to get a sense of that, where that discussion has gone since, I think that was 2018, maybe last when that had come up.
I can try and answer this question. It was pre-COVID. I know I can tell you that my whole life is based on BC and hoping that we'll have AC. We were up to 30 at a time. And I can tell you, as far as court proceedings and the administrative meetings, because just the granularity of this is court actually starts at 1:30, but we as a team may start at 11, and we go through each of the participants and look at where they are succeeding, where they need additional help, what other services we could add, goals we can set. So that can take up to, and we go right through the lunch hour. I have lost some weight since I've been doing behavioral health court. And so anywhere from 11 to 2:30, 3.5 hours in a day out of my day that's devoted to the team meeting plus court, plus we probably discuss a participant every day. So we have a behavioral health court discussion about something every day. So I still have a full-time load with, I have half of all the family law cases, not including child needed care. And then, I don't know, what, a fourth of the felony cases. So we found that 30 just became unwieldy. We could hardly get through a court proceeding. And what is wonderful, many of our behavioral health court participants, they have jobs. And so they're they're using their lunch break or their some other break to try and participate. And if we've got them hanging out for an hour before we can even call their cases, that doesn't help them feel good about participating when they are worried about what's happening with their job. That's just one point. So we've settled on 25 as our maximum, just as far as our endurance. If we expanded this, expansion would probably require more people, maybe even another judge. As Ms. Cash was saying, if we expanded it to juveniles, then that'd probably require a different judge to handle that part. So it can all be done. We can expand it. It's time and money and participants.
And I absolutely hear that. And I hope it didn't sound like I was suggesting like, oh, I know you've got plenty of other time. I think, okay, good. I think, I guess my question is, do you sense that there is a need for more?
Well, I'm going to punt this one to Sharon Zaire. Because she sees everybody that's passed through for at least an assessment.
I think that because we max it at 25, we do try to choose people that we think are going to best, that need the program. But there are some people, there are a lot of people that need the program, but we choose the ones that really, really need it. So people that need the program, I think we discussed maybe having a behavioral health court light where we could include more people but it would be maybe less intense than the current program is for the participants that need that level of supervision. So yeah, we have discussed maybe expanding somewhat to have a less supervised, but still have the benefits of participating in treatment and having your charges dismissed at the end.
Thanks.
Thank you for sharing all these data and for making sure that we have a chance to kind of walk through all of the details. I just had a couple of kind of comments and a question. I really loved seeing that ratio shift in the incentives to sanctions. That is a huge indicator of what we see in all of the research on specialty courts. And so seeing that we're moving in that direction and that it has resulted in positive outcomes for clients is fantastic. So just wanted to say thank you for showing that. And I'm glad that we're moving in that direction. I also noted with the decrease in testing, which is consistent with a lot of the research, that looks like it has great outcomes for folks as well. And I would support moving in the direction of no longer THC testing, because that's something where we can see people getting tripped up when we don't really see a huge impact on community. So just know that you would have my support in that one as you all discuss that as a court work group. The other piece I just wanted to kind of get more of a feel of is that we have a really big work group here because we have people from multiple organizations, with folks from DECA, from Burt Nash, as well as from our legal system. That does mean that this is really resource intensive. And I think that the resources that we're providing to folks are really important, but how much does having people from multiple organizations, I see that we have multiple criminal defense attorneys, how much does that add to some of this administrative time that you're taking with meetings and with kind of going through all of these cases? Is there a way to streamline that a bit more, or have you all talked about that as a court? Also, I'm thinking about this kind of next steps. Is it behavioral health court light, or kind of increased supervision with increased access to behavioral health resources that may not be a whole specialty court, but more specialty supervision?
So as far as streamlining coordination between all the parties, so each of us serves a different role. Obviously, defense attorneys advocating for the best interest of their clients, Bert Nash, mental health, DECA, substance abuse, me for the DA's office for the community. I'm not sure how you would streamline it necessarily, just based off the fact that mental health is a very subjective thing based on person to person, but it is something that we could look into in the future.
So one of the ways that other courts across the country do this is that they have the court coordinator coordinate with the mental health provider and the substance abuse treatment provider, so that those folks may not have to come to all of those meetings, and you have a little bit more of an enhanced role for the court coordinator. I don't know if that's something that you all have kind of talked through, of how do we manage service providers as well as supervision within the court. It's an idea. I don't know what works best for your court, but that's a different way that folks have done it around the country.
Yeah, and so we kind of do that already. So treatment providers provide us weekly reports on everyone in BHC. And based off of that, we look for areas that someone needs to improve on, or areas where they're doing well. I think Judge Picorni said that earlier, but typically when we ask one of the treatment providers at our weekly BHC docket, myself, Judge Picorni, defense attorneys, we're all attorneys, so we typically like to defer to the treatment professionals. So we like to have them there just for their input on any questions that we have.
This is Karen Meyer, defense attorney. Ms. Portillo, I think there is a way to do kind of a lower intense level. I would say that most of our participants are not self-sufficient, at least in the beginning, but I do think there could be a lower level court, or a court that could work with the court coordinator being the point of contact. Because there are people that aren't in BHC who can manage their services. They just need to have access and information. I think that there is a way that we could do a level 2 BHC, or something that doesn't require people needing rides to court, or, you know, assistance with reading the documents, or going to get a driver's license, things like that. I think there is a way that we could make a lower level court, and I would encourage the court system and the county to look at that possibility.
This is Sarah, just to piggyback on that point. I think what we're trying, just as we get more, you know, as we've done this more and more, and we want to increase the access to services for people in our community who need them, I think we all have to challenge ourselves to become more efficient under the hood, you know, and to try to make these programs as streamlined as possible, to try to increase the amount of access that members of our community have to them. Now, if that needs to be tweaked and is a little bit different, and there's a different way to do that so that we can streamline some of those things, I just think that's what you're hearing. And I think that's just something we'd like the whole BHC team to really think about and consider as we just continue to evolve and get better with these programs.
If I could jump in, actually, I think Judge McCabery and Pam Weegan and I had a meeting, once again, was it 9 months ago, where we were talking about, could we figure out how to do a behavioral health court light? So it's definitely on the agenda. And as all of you know, having been on this committee, as much as people want things to change things in government, and the court is like changing the Titanic's direction. And it's done, that, you know, the directions of the court are changing, and it's because of dedicated people who are on this committee. But it's just slow. And just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean that we aren't thinking about it and wanting to improve the system. I just want to say thank you very much for everybody who's participated, because I know you know this, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but these kinds of programs have a generational impact on the people in our community. This is not just helping the participants. The family members that come in to support a participant all will express their thanks and gratitude to the county for funding this program, to all the efforts from Bert Nash and DECA and every other partner in behavioral health court, because it has changed the lives of the children for better. It's changed the lives of the parents of these participants for better. This just will have a giant ripple effect, I believe, on this community. So thank you all very much.
Pam, you're muted.
Sorry about that. We're coming to the end of the meeting, so I want to make sure we give an opportunity if there's any public comment from people who are listening in today before we close. I don't know, Matt and Zena, is there anybody out there that has a question?
Yes, there's one person. I'm gonna allow them to speak.
Yeah, hi, thanks everybody. This is Kirsten Kuhn. Headed back to the very beginning of the meeting, there was a little bullet point on a slide that mentioned that there were exceptions for the expungement for folks in the program. And I was just wondering if you could illuminate what those exceptions might be. Thank you.
I think maybe we should defer to Brian Dieter from the district attorney's office on that one.
Yeah, so the only thing that I can think of that would be an exception to that are the ones listed in the expungement statute, which would be best interest of the community, no pending charges. I know there's a third, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but yeah, the only exception would be the ones in the expungement statute itself.
This is Karen O'Brien, defense attorney. I don't know if the question was, what are the exceptions to an expungement, or what are the exceptions on when you have to list an expunged conviction or arrest? So we're very limited on the cases that are not expunged in behavioral health court. In fact, I can't think of any of my cases that have applied for expungement that have been denied. But there are, even if you have something expunged, there are certain exceptions to where it is expunged and where it is not expunged. And those are, as Brian said, in the statute, and some of that we can't control.
Kirsten, did that answer your question?
Oh, yes, it did. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did we have any other questions out there, Zena?
Not at this time. No, I don't see any others. Well, actually, if you have a question, would you mind saying it out loud? Because I do see someone posted a comment in the chat, and the chat is not visible to the recording online.
You'll need to raise your hand on Zoom, and then you could be moved into the panel, just FYI. There you go.
Patricia, you're unmuted. You can talk now.
Patricia, are you there? Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. To everyone, yes, my name is Patricia. I'm with Justice Matters, and I have a lot of questions. I've been listening, but I have a son. I'm not gonna give his name, but we got a problem with driving while suspended. I mean, almost all these things that you all are talking about. And my question is, when he was young, at age 18, okay, he was in your courtroom. Then later he had a family, everything was going fine. When a person's family breaks down, when people start having personal problems, then that's when all these other substance abuse, they don't care anymore, driving while suspended, but they keep coming back and forth to court over and over and over again. And my question is, why can't they get a driver's license? Why do you all keep continuing it? Then we got to bail him out, bail money, bond money, bail money. It's just back and forth. And it's just, to me, it's a revolving door. And I mean, I love my son, and I probably love all the people that are in the court, you know, going through this, but I recognize, and something I want you all to recognize is he's a perfectly well suitable person, but he's got a problem with self-esteem. He knows he's already in the system. He knows that the police are going to stop him. He knows that if he gets a job, he may not be able to keep it because for whatever reason, he might be late or he might have went out with somebody. And I don't know, the people with these problems, they can't keep steady. So it doesn't matter how much you do for them. What are you going to do about keeping them steady? You know, because my son can keep a job. He's a good welder, mechanic and everything, but let something go wrong and they want to run back to the drugs, run back to the problem. And then it's all here we go again, bailing him out of jail. And how come you got stopped? Well, oh, you don't have a driver's license. So, I mean, somebody has to know that if you're driving without a license and you get stopped 2 or 3 times, I mean, why does it keep going on and on and on? I mean, I'm a mother. He's too old. I can't send him to his room no more. And all you all do is keep throwing him in jail. What does it going to take to get a person to do what they need to do? I mean, I recognize most of you. You all probably even know me. I'm glad we're not. You can't see me because I think maybe one person might know who I am. But I did go to court one time and ask for some help. And all my son got was 6 extra months in jail. That wasn't what I was asking for. Yes, my son has a drug problem. That's the problem. That is the problem. Why doesn't he keep going? Because they don't want to keep giving you a P test. They don't want to keep doing what you're asking. They don't want to do it. Because the truth is, when you get them clean and fresh, what job is going to really keep them? Who's going to hire them? Who's going to hire them? And I don't know, I could go on and on and on. But when you get these people that are really down and out like this, they've been rejected by jobs. rejected by their family, their wives or girlfriends kicked them out, they lost their kids. I mean, my goodness. What's going to keep their head up above water? Yes, it's supposed to be them. And yes, I'm a mother that goes to church, but they don't want to come to church. So you all are their next step to church. You know, they don't want to listen to the pastor no more. And so you all are sitting up there in your robes. I guess you're the next best thing to the pastor. But I don't, you know, I don't know what else to say. I'm talking to you from my heart, not from a pad of paper with studied lessons and all your research. I'm the mother of someone with a problem. If he don't stop, he's going to die. Now, what can you do about that? What are you going to do? I mean, what can you do? You see these people coming in, they got personal problems that started all this. That's what the problem is, people. It's their personal life and all the rejection that they've experienced. I don't know what else to tell you. I love my son. He's in his 40s now. We've been going through this since he's been 18. You put him in a group home when he was 16. So then at that time, I thought it was my fault because, you know, I was a single parent. I had to work. But then, you know, when your kid doesn't have the good family surroundings, they end up out there in the street with those people that are not good. I took him to church. He was in the choir. When they get 18, 19, they leave church, I'm telling you, and then they end up with you all. So now you all are doing what you're doing to try to help him. So now he's in jail right now. So, and I just turned 65. And I'm just getting over the virus too. So I thank God I'm done with that, of all things, on New Year's Day. But anyway, that's just a little bit. See, that didn't come out of your books back there in your bookcase, section 5 and 10 and all that. This is coming from life experience out of my house, dealing with the police, dealing with attorneys, public defenders, bail money, bond money. I had a 401k, ma'am. I'm 65. I'm supposed to have some retirement money. What do I have now? Nothing. Social Security, thank God. My daughter's saying, wrap it up. I'm saying too much. If you don't hear what I got to say, that this is what I'm saying. I'm not mad at you all, but I'm telling you the truth. Yes, he's a minority and everybody loves him. That's the thing, and you all love him. Once I say his name, but I'm not going to say his name, but you all know. And he's not a bad person. He just won't do what he's supposed to do to help himself. He'll help you, but he won't help himself. So I don't know. I got a big puzzle too. And I guess I will die one day, hoping that what we learned in church, hoping that the Lord will save him. You know, but putting him in and out of jail, my goodness. House arrest, that is $14 a day. He owes $500 right now. House arrest. I mean, 3 times house arrest. The bill can get up to $1,500. And then when it's come court time, if he hadn't paid that, then you keep him a few more days or a few more weeks. Where is he getting the money to pay these bills? From me, from my friends, 401k is gone, depleted. I need some dental work. Now what? Who do I have to? I can't even hardly smile. So you all, I don't know, it's a terrible thing. It's the drugs. It's not the fact that he don't have a driver's license, it's the drugs. How you gonna sit down? It's hard enough to take a test when you're sober. It's hard enough to keep a job when you're sober. How are you gonna keep a job and you got a drug problem? And then you got to keep reporting back and forth to the court. Failure to appears, there's more, you all know the program, this is your program. How is a person ever supposed to get steady if they got to keep reporting to court? But that's what it is. And that's what I've gone through. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be as nice as possible. My daughter's in the background telling me, Mom, be quiet. And I'm getting ready to wrap it up, but I don't have any more money. I can't bond him out no more. I can't do it. I'm not doing it. So I don't know. Is he spoiled? Who knows? 40 years old, come on. I just asked the police. I tell them, if you have to pick my son up, just take him, please. Don't hurt him, you know. The police know me. My son don't even hurt anybody. His life's all goofed up. So that's what it is. I'm just trying to get you to understand. His life's goofed up. He's not goofing anybody else's life up. He's goofing his own life up. How you get that straight? I don't know. Because I will repeat myself, I'm 65. Gray hairs, and gray hair is beautiful. But that's it. I can't tell you no more. So that's all. You all have a wonderful day and keep working. Because you all are trying to do the best you can. It's up to the individuals. But my son feels like there's no hope for his life.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson. We have 2 responses. We have 2 people with their hands up to respond to your question.
Jay, you want to go ahead? I think you had your hand up first.
Hi, Ms. Patterson. My name is Shay Downing. I do criminal defense work. I wanted to respond to a couple of your comments because I think it highlights some of the issues that all of us face and some of the concerns that are raised. Specifically, this panel is about behavioral health court, but one of the things I think had been made evident at the very beginning is there has to be a willingness of the participant to participate in the program. If they are not willing to accept that they have a problem, or they're not willing to follow through with the steps that are designed to help them remain sober, or to address any mental health issues that come about, there's not much, just like you, that the program can do either. The reality is, if they continue to have issues where they are accused and alleged to have committed crimes, even if those are traffic infractions, those have to be addressed. And that highlights the second problem, which is one of the reasons that I don't know your son, but one of the reasons his cases may be continued out is because no one wants to see him have additional convictions, which are going to then require more payment, make it harder for him to get his license back, have more fines, have more jail time. So often they will continue them to give him a chance to clear up what's already out there, to get his license back so that there aren't new convictions. But if that's not happening, I think sometimes everybody's hands are tied there. So that's all I wanted to add from the point of view of why they may have additional court appearances. Is they're designed to sort of help them, give them a chance to figure out the other issues without making it harder.
Thank you.
Ms. Patterson, this is Suzanne Valdez, and I think I've met you probably at a church function. I think you may be the person that I met, and I just wanted to tell you, thank you for your comments and your vulnerability and talking publicly about your concerns. And your story is not, it's not uncommon, right? These concerns that you have as a parent. I appreciate what Ms. Downing talks about when she says, personal accountability is very important here. And so I appreciate those comments as well. And I agree with everything that she says, that this community is very much engaged. And just by the fact that we're still here at past 12:30 and listening and having this conversation, you know, I think says volumes about the people in the community who do care about ensuring that that those resources are put to a good use, and that resources for your son are in place as well. But there is a balance with that, and then the accountability, the personal accountability that one has to you know, to what's happened in his life. I would love to talk to you just and hear what more you have to say. And please know that that's something that's important to me, and we want to hear about that because we are in a position to take those things in consideration. And thank you again for your voicing your concerns and your thoughts as a mother. And I very much, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate it as a mother as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Do we have other questions?
Moral. Motor.
Do we have any other public questions or comments?
No, I do not see any more public questions or comments.
I want to thank everybody today for participating in today's meeting. It's been really beneficial. I'm going to call this meeting adjourned. I'll see you all next month on February 8th. Thank you very much.